Coming up on Ash Wednesday and Lent, and we're going to do some of that and more from the Bible on February 15th, 2026. Now, tomorrow is a holiday. It's President's Day. And this was started to honor George Washington on his birthday on February 22nd. But to make it on a Monday, they moved it to the third Monday. And since Abraham Lincoln had a birthday on February 12th, it's typically called President's Day. Then they add more. How many people have seen Mount Rushmore? That's how, put him in the 30s as Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. And the original name of that meant six grandfathers in the Lakota Indian name. Some people get upset that there's a statue there. They got hundreds of hills and stuff. They picked one and put it on. Now, how magnificent was the view of Mount Rushmore before the sculpture was completed or started? How magnificent was it there, that view? And some say the magnificence of that view was unprecedented. Because there were no presidents. Anyway, so that's a little bit on a joke there, yeah. And it's because it's February, it's coming up, and there you go. Yeah, Ash Wednesday, Lent, and other things. Lent begins after Fastnacht Tuesday on Ash Wednesday and ends at Easter. The ashes in Ash Wednesday represent dust. Fastnacht literally means night before the fast. The French Mardi Gras is Fat Tuesday, again, right before you're supposed to start fasting. Lent is noticeable for the daylight hours lengthening. Has everyone noticed that you get more sun during the day? And most people like that, right? They get SAD, that seasonal affective disorder, whatever, if they don't have that. Now, the older English word was Lenten for spring, and the older German word was Lents for spring. Because where did the word Lent come from? If we go to Song of Solomon 2, we get some, spelled wrong, Lent. The flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing of the birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. How many people have heard the voice of the turtle? No, yeah. The flowers appear, right, in springtime? Yeah, the turtles. If you go to the Luther German, the springtime is Lents. That's a word in German for the lengthening, the springtime, the spring season. And so, that's where the word Lent would come from. It's related to that as the lengthening of the days, the spring, and that's when Lent is. Notice the Greek word for the flowers, anthe. We get anthology from that. And a blossom. And, of course, the German word is blumen. The bloomin' flowers. But blumen with blooms, that was the German word for that. Now, notice the Hebrew parallelism there. And so the flowers appear on the earth. The time of the singing of birds has come. The voice of the turtle is heard in our land. There's a little bit of parallelism. Sometimes all three of them will say the same thing. That turtle, in Greek, it was trigonos. In the Latin, it's terturus, turtle in Middle English, and turteltaube, or dove, in the Luther German. Now, there was a turtle dove or a turtle pigeon. Pigeon and dove are the same bird, and it made the sound of tur, tur, tur. And so when they're talking about the turtle dove and the turtles making sounds, it's the tur, tur of the sound that they're making. And that's where that comes from. And we just think of the turtles. No, it's not the turtles, but that's what that is. Now, we count back 40 days from Easter to Lent. Counting back 40 days from Easter Sunday, not including Sunday, is a Wednesday, and that's called Ash Wednesday. And different churches, groups will have slightly different counting methods, but that's what a lot of churches use. That's what we use. 40 days from Easter. Imagine jokes raining down for 40 days and 40 nights. How about raining in jokes? Well, we'll consider that. So, and it's not easy to count back. Counting back 40 days from Easter to Lent requires fortitude, at least for some exciting days about to break with Easter. Yeah. You've heard this before, but if you're counting, to sum it up, many children these days have some trouble with multiplication. There's a difference of opinion, but times are tough, and their troubles are multiplying. Does that add up? What does the remainder say about what's left over? Anyway, but the whole idea here is you go back 40 days, and that's how we get this Ash Wednesday. And because Easter is based on the moon and the cycles, it varies, and Easter's a little early this year. So that's what we get there. Yeah. Now, the Ash Wednesday is usually taken to be the ashes, say from Genesis. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it wast thou taken. For dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt return. This is usually taken as part of what Ash Wednesday is. The actual Greek in the Septuagint has ye or gi as in earth. We get geometry and geology from that. G in Greek, it's G or he. Yeah. Now, another popular college major is geography, and for some, that's where it's at. Right? Geography, where it's at. Yeah. So that we get with that. Now, in Job, wherefore I abhor myself and repent in dust and ashes. And so there's another Greek word for ashes, but ashes and dust and earth is somewhat similar. If you look at the Latin, we have cinera. We get cinder from that. Ashes and cinder. Ever heard of Cinderella? And that comes from an Italian. The Ella means like it's a little girl, and the cinder has to do with ashes. So you got a girl who's working with ashes, cleaning up and doing things, and that's where the word for Cinderella comes from. Yeah, cinder, asha in Middle English. Now, that last day before Lent, what are you going to do if you decide you're going to fast and not eat something for 40 days, give up something? You need to eat all the stuff, pig out or eat a lot before, and there are different names for that. One is in French, we have the Mardi Gras. Gras is fat. Mardi Gras is like Fat Tuesday. And so we have the famous, that's the French one. The famous Mardi Gras is in New Orleans, home of the Saints, where we get the fleur-de-lis, and that's been used throughout French history. Now, that Mardi is also the name Martis, Day of Mars from French. The Mardi is Tuesday because Mars was the god of war. So in 2 Samuel 11:1, it says, and it came to pass after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle. Well, yeah, they would go in the springtime because they didn't want to fight in the winter unless you're Hannibal or Alexander the Great, and you might surprise someone by doing something in another season. So we get that. And so that going to war is where we get the name March. And it also, the French had named Tuesday, Martis, and we get, so that came through with the Mardi Gras. Now, David tarried still at Jerusalem. Verse next is when he sees Bathsheba, but that's a whole nother story, but that's the context for that particular verse. Now we have Pennsylvania Dutch customs called Fastnacht Day or Fasenacht Day, tradition to eat well before the start of Lent. Fast in German is like a fast. Nacht is night. It literally means a fast night day. So Fastnacht means fasting for the night before, but the day you add it. It's like in England, there's a place called Pendle Hill, and the Dal is like hill and dale. And so you have Pendle Hill, literally meaning hill, 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 3 hills. For you Ohio State fans, the Ohio River is an Indian word, and it literally means river, river, because the Indian word meant the river. And you get things like Neanderthal Valley is Neander Valley Valley, because Tal is valley in German. So, yeah, so the Pennsylvania Dutch custom there. You ever heard of Shrove Tuesday? Shrove Tuesday, shrive, meaning to absolve, as in a priest hearing a confession and prescribing penance and granting absolution. So when you prescribe, right, that's where you get that idea of shrive, Shrove Tuesday. Old English, shriven, a sign. German, schreiben, to write, draw. Schreibere from Latin, and so forth. Now, sometimes it has the name Pancake Tuesday is the day before Lent, for the same reason as Fastnacht Day. And the flip side is that that's the flat truth. So it should all pan out. Yeah, all good. Yeah. Now, the Pennsylvania Dutch term for a donut is a Fastnacht, from the German word again, Fasten night. Don't worry, it will all pan out by Friday. Yep. Now, from Wikipedia, the last person up on Shrove Tuesday, that's for the Amish here, was called the Fastnacht and kidded all day long for being late for this wonderful breakfast. In the same way, the last person up on Ash Wednesday was also teased and called the Ashapoodle, whose chore for the day was to carry the ashes in the stoves and ovens outside to the ash pile. We don't have those anymore, but yeah, that's where some of those names come from. Those donuts, if you remember about the old EUB building downtown, and before we moved to the current location here in 1957, in the documentation it talked about fat cakes, like a donut today, but could be filled with meat and so forth. And the minutes, this is from the 50s, say, no, this was from 1903 or so. On September 21st, 1903, it was unanimously agreed that the building committee should apply for a charter. Building operations began in March 1903. The women continued to sell donuts, fat cakes, and I can't find anyone who remembers them called fat cakes. So many were sold that jestingly the town folk said that UB Church will never stand, for the foundation is built on fat cakes. That goes the house built on sand, right? And everyone that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. That's a whole other topic. It's somewhat ambiguous in the Greek. It's like someone who edifies of him the house. And so it's a question on who's he referring to about edifying and building? And so that's another topic having to do with the Sermon on the Mount. Now, a lot of people give up things. They don't eat certain things. We talked about this with the fast food disappearing. Does anyone know what fast food Jesus gives to you? What does he give to you? Let me. And he gives you two things. One is the bread of life, and the other is sweet peas. You're supposed to get sweet peas from him. Sweet peas, yeah. And so we have all these fast foods, and that's having to do with not eating. Now, we talked about that in a few months ago in Matthew, Sermon on the Mount, right before or after the Lord's Prayer. When ye fast, and Jesus says when you do it, doesn't say to do it, so you have to decide what to do. Be not as the hypocrites, those actors who pretend of a scowling countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear to men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. It's actually they're far from their reward, but they changed the translation. But thou, when thou fastest, when you do it, anoint thine head and wash thine face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward. It's a different Greek word. It means to give you what you're due, not as a reward. And so we had talked about that. So what are you supposed to fast from on Lent? So it's a time of fasting, self-denial. What are you giving up for Lent? I was going to give up procrastination for Lent, but I decided I'd wait until next year. Yeah, what's a fast? What's a slow? Are you a champion, breakfast champions, a Wheaties? Who's the quarterback there? Going back, yeah. Yeah. We fast every night. When we break the fast, it's called breakfast. And where does the idea of fasting in Lent come from? Right? They should have come from somewhere, right? Now, fasting, you can get tired of fasting. In Matthew, crucifixion, now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. It's another topic in Latin, that's the tenebrae, you get darkness. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? That's the 9th hour, which is what, 3 in the afternoon if you start at 6? That's the way they would do it. So they used to fast to the 9th hour. So that's a long time to fast, right? You might get hungry. So they decided they would move it up 3 hours to 12 o'clock. And it started being called noon, the noon hour, the 9th hour. That is noon. And so noon is the 9th hour of the day. Well, it's known as the 6th hour, from 6 in the morning, 6th hour. But because they were hungry and wanted to eat earlier, they moved the 9th hour fast to the noon fast, which was at 12. Get around these little things if you're hungry enough. If we go to the temptations in Matthew 4, remember Jesus is in the wilderness? And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards hungry. Oh, we got 40 there, right? Don't we have 40 days in Lent? Wasn't he fasting? And that's where this idea of 40 days for the fast comes from. Night before the fast, Fastenzeit, Lent, from German. And there we see in Latin, quadragenta. That literally means 40th. Anyone ever seen that as a Latin name for Lent? If you're in the Catholic Church, you might have seen that from Latin, but that's a Latin. But it has to do with these verses and the 40 days and the 40 nights. Let's look at that. Jesus was fasting. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterwards hungry. Oh, he was tempted. What does it mean to be tempted? The Latin word is to try, test, try, but it's come to mean, someone's going to offer me something and they'll see if I take it. So if I don't take it, I'm okay. I've resisted the temptation. Now, the word that's used there is related to, it's a pirastic, pirasmos. Pirazo is to examine. You examine someone. And from the time of Aristotle, Aristotle distinguished a type of reasoning called pirastic, pirastikos, which is the tempting. It's examinational reasoning, and you're trying to reason with someone, and you're trying to use things they think they believe or they know they believe to try to trick them, to get them to be deceived. So that whole idea of tempting means to try to deceive people with things they don't understand. They don't, or they think they understand. Isn't that what the devil does? He uses all these verses, tries to trick Jesus. He examines them. He tempts them. Oh, Jesus, you should know these verses. This is what they say. And Jesus comes back and he knows how to counter it. You see how it's a whole lot easier if you move the tempt from not being deceived, which is a lot harder to do, to, they offered me something and I said no. I avoided the temptation. Now, when you think of the temptation and the examination, think of the pirates. You've all seen them, right? And pirates try to trick you. They try to deceive you. They want to take what you have, but they try to deceive you, and they'll try to, they'll fly the friendly flag at the last minute, put up the skull and crossbones or something and attack. The pirates are trying to deceive you and trick you. The Greek word is piratis, which is pirate, from pira, like a trial or experiment. So the actual word for pirate in English goes back to the Greek. It's related to the same word for temptation, pirasmos, piratis. it means you're trying to trick someone. So if you think of pirate and the temptation, that's a way to remember a little bit what the Greek word is. In Matthew 4, and when the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of Man, command that these stones be made bread. And we go to the Sermon on the Mount. Or what man is there of you? Him, if his son ask bread, will he give him a stone? And we went through there with the nonverbal. To keep the actual order of the Greek, which they change, he says, and which one of you, if they ask for bread, not a stone, what do you give them? And of course, so he's doing this back and forth. What we got from all that and from the fasting verses is you're not supposed to feed the birds. You're not supposed to eat the fruit because they're going to want to give you stones as bread, the stones being used to build up a big tower, a house of sand, the stones being little pieces of sand. And so they want to do that. They want to give you these stones to build up a tower, a house on sand, rather than feed you the bread that you're supposed to have, the living bread. So we get that idea. Do not feed the birds. Do not eat the fruit. If you're not feeding the birds and you're not eating the fruit, aren't you fasting? Yeah, and so that's an interesting idea on what he's saying. You're not just giving up food. You're not doing these things you're not supposed to be doing. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, that is the literal bread, but by every word that is spoken word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. And so here, Jesus detects the deception, the examination, the tempting, and he provides the context and the verse that counters what Satan says. Now, another Greek word is that for evil, and we've gone over this before, but evil from the Greek and what is that of being oppressed by toils. So when you're doing evil, you're trying to oppress someone, typically to be great. You're not supposed to be great. You're not supposed to use Jesus and so forth to try to be great and oppress someone else. And you can oppress yourself. Well, that didn't show. Oh, I know why. There's a problem here, but we'll skip that. So you can either oppress yourself, oppress others, or have others oppress you, or others oppressing themselves. So when Jesus was led up to the Spirit in the wilderness to be tempted, to be examined, to be tricked, deceived of the devil, he didn't do it. And we have the verse in the Sermon on the Mount, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And what does that mean? Why would God tempt us? And we have all this controversy. Well, it says, do not let us be deceived by ideas and beliefs that we think are true, and help flow us away from being oppressed by others or oppressing others or oppressing ourselves. That's what the birds will do. It's really hard to oppress you, but if they can trick you into oppressing yourself, that's a whole lot easier. And so that's what the deceivers and all sorts will do. Why are we worried about the birds? Well, let's go to the parable in Matthew 13, the sower, the first one. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls, the birds, came and ate them, devoured them up. And then he explains the parable. And when anyone heareth the reasoning of the kingdom and doesn't understand it, then cometh the wicked one, the birds, the wicked ones, the deceivers, and they catch them away, what was sown in their heart. And that's why it's so important to be able to avoid the temptation, know what's being there, what the logic is. So the wicked one and those who work for him, those birds, and this is how you get the connection with the birds, and then all the other birds fall, oh yeah, it's not good. That catcheth away is arpazzi. We get the word harpoon from it. The Latin word is raptura. So when you hear about the rapture, it's a harpooning, a snatching up. And so here the birds are snatching up, catching away. And it's also arpazzi is a play on words with an actual Greek bird that was by that name is where it comes from. So that's why it's so important to understand that, the two parts. Yeah, cometh from the wicked one and casteth away. that rapture. So they're trying to take you away. The saying is, you'll be birdseed. You don't want to be birdseed. You need to understand what it is, and being able to counter what's said when you hear something in a sermon or someone says something from the Bible, snatched away from the birds. So to summarize here, counting back 40 days from Easter, we get Ash Wednesday. And that fasting comes from the idea of Jesus fasting 40 days and 40 nights. That's where the 40 comes from. And the temptation is the examination, using things you think are true or trying to deceive you. The evil is oppression. If they can get you to think things that aren't true, they can get you to oppress yourself. Then we got the idea of the birds. Now, Augustine in the 4th century, our fast at any other time is voluntary, but during Lent, we sin if we do not fast. And that's Augustine's opinion in what he wrote down. So for Lent, what are you going to give up? And the one guidance I can see here is don't feed the birds, don't eat the fruit. But that goes for the whole year long, so you can think about what you want to give up for the Lent time going into Easter. Okay, so thank you. This has been Ash Wednesday and Lent and more from the Bible. We're going to return to some of the ideas from Matthew 21, I think, next week, because that's the crucifixion week. And we can't wait to Easter because he has all these things he said. So we're going to fill in some things that usually aren't covered that he says during the crucifixion week. So when we get to Easter, we can actually talk about some of the parts of Easter. Thank you. So I